So in this EDC update, guys, not only are we going to be going over and covering some new EDC gear, but I also wanted to share with you guys two huge mistakes that I recently made with my EDC setup. The situation could have resulted in a very bad outcome for me. As we go through my EDC setup and I share with you these two mistakes, you might see some parts in here that you might want to pick up for yourself. I'll always include a parts list for everything that you see in this video. Just find the first link in the description. I'll also pin that link in the comments for you. So first, let's talk about watches. Usually with my EDC watches, I have a couple of different kinds. I have the ultimate beater watch, meaning if I destroy this watch, I'm not gonna get mad about it. I'm not gonna pitch a hissy fit, and I can cheaply replace it. The second type of watch that I typically carry is something that is a little bit nicer. It doesn't have to be crazy expensive, just something that you don't really want to beat up. And then the third type is something that is almost indestructible. And so for my cheap watch, I usually wear this guy right here. This is a Casio G-Shock, and it's called the GA2100. A lot of people like to modify these and make them into something what they call a Casio, which is a ripoff of a Royal Oak, and the Royal Oaks are tens of thousands of dollars. Essentially, it's a metal body and you just put everything into it. People like to do it, they call it Casio. Now these watches do come in multiple colors, but I got black on black because I like things that are more subtle and a little bit more stealth. What attracted me to this was the low price. I think it was about $90 is what I paid for it. There are more affordable versions that Casio makes that aren't G-Shock, but I like it because I've banged this thing around on the tailgate of my truck. I've banged it on guns and it's not scratched at all. I also like how the buttons are recessed into it, and so they don't snag on any long sleeve shirts or any types of jackets that I might be putting my arm through. And it's just a fantastic watch to take to the range. The second watch is the Seiko Sports. I like automatic dive watches. Now, I'm not a diver, nor do I ever really plan to be, but I love dive watches because they're over-engineered and they're just really tough. And over the years on doing EDC updates on this channel, I have been through quite a few dive watches and I love them all. But I really like this one because of the PVD coating, and I like automatic watches that have the sweeping second hand. It's not necessary, obviously. I mean, for your civilian that just carries every day, most people don't even wear a watch anymore unless they want like an Apple smartwatch or the Galaxy watch or something like that. Most of us just have a cell phone that'll tell us the time, but for me, I just like watches, and that's just something that I do. Now, this next watch is a very high-priced watch. I would say they're about the $400 to $500 mark. This one is from a company called Isobright. This is a very tough watch. It has tritium vials in the indices that are on there so you can see it at night. I'm not gonna go into all of the tech specs, but this is called the Isobright Afterburner. They come in multiple colors. I think they have a red one, they have a green one, they have a blue one, but to me, the black was just the perfect watch for me. This watch, I have worn it every single day exclusively since the last EDC update. I've worn it to the range, I've hit it on my tailgate of my truck, on the actual crystal that's on here. Nothing is scratched, nothing is dinged up on it. There's only one gripe that I have about this watch, and that's gonna be the watch band. It has a beautiful silicone watch band, and I typically like silicone watch bands. The downside is the keepers here for the bracelet tend to slide off throughout the day. So I just ordered a new watch band. I was hoping it would be here in time for this video, but unfortunately it's not. In addition to the watches, I'll have a link for the band that I ordered because I think it's a really good compromise because the inside is still made of the silicone band, but the outside is made of a canvas, and the keepers are made of a canvas, so they don't slide off as easy as this does. But aside from that, this watch has been absolutely amazing. Moving on to my hand right here, I don't wear standard wedding bands anymore at all. In fact, I rarely wear a wedding band. I do whenever I go out like with my wife and stuff, but I work from home, been working from home for like 7 years. And honestly, I just don't like rings in general. A couple things I didn't like about standard wedding bands. Number one, if you break your finger, it's a very difficult process to get that ring off and you will get some crazy swelling, and some people have had to have their fingers amputated before. And working with guns and doing things outdoors all the time, the chances of breaking your fingers are kind of high. And so I got these are silicone wedding bands. They come in a ton of different colors and any size that you could possibly imagine. Now this was the ring that I used to wear. It's a combination of like stainless steel and white gold. The thing I didn't like about it is when it was on my knuckle, we'll just put it on this hand, it would kind of slide around and it was creating this weird callus on my knuckle, and the callus kept growing and growing to the point where I could almost not get my ring off of my hand. And the other thing I didn't like about it was when you have a hard ring like this, let's just say one day you've had a lot of salt, you're retaining water and your ring's too tight and it's hard to get off. And then the next day you're not retaining water or whatever, and the ring is super loose and will fly off of your hand if you sling your hand the wrong way. So with a silicone band, you don't really have those problems. It's not heavy enough to slide up and down. And also, if your fingers are swollen one day because of whatever your diet, it expands with your fingers and it always comes off. But the thing I like most about them is if you lose them or rip them off, they're 25 bucks to replace. Now for my sunglasses, I am still rocking the same sunglasses that I've been rocking for the past couple of years now. These are the Core Essentials. I forgot the actual name of them, but I love these. They are ballistics rated. I like them because they have magnets in them and the magnetic field is aimed away from your head, not towards your head. But at this end and this end are magnets. And what I like about that is, number one, they come with a strap and you can put them in your car and you just pop them up and they stick there. And they don't come off. Even like I've been off-road in my truck before bouncing around and they haven't fallen off. The other thing I like about them, aside from being ballistics rated, whenever I go into a store, I don't like putting my sunglasses right here because they pull my shirt down and they stretch out the collar of your shirt. And so I like, because they're magnetic, you can just put them on your sleeve and leave them right there. The other thing is I had another set of glasses. I believe they were from a company called Gators. I still have them and I still use them, but they had aluminum frames. The downside to aluminum frames, number one, they're not magnetic. So I kind of got spoiled on clipping them onto my shirt sleeve and using the magnetic strap on my visor in my truck. And then secondly, I don't like metal frames because sometimes I leave my sunglasses in my car, and being in Arizona where it gets 118 degrees sometimes, aluminum frames will burn the crap out of you and plastic frames won't. For those of you who watched my previous everyday carry update, I was carrying the key bar and I have been carrying the same key bar for a couple of years now. I have used other ones in the past that weren't key bar that were similar in style, and this one has held up very well with the PVD coating. There's a few little nicks here and there. I got my flash drive and a couple of keys there, but I don't really need this very often. This is just a couple of important keys that I need, but they're not keys I need every day. So I don't technically carry this every single day, but I do carry it quite a bit. The other thing is when it comes to keys, I've talked about this a little bit in the past in other videos. If you have a car that has keyless go, meaning all you gotta do is push a button in your car or touch a door handle to open your car is the easiest car in the world to steal right now. I have these things called Faraday pouches. I also have a Faraday box that I store a lot more keys in, but the problem is these keys are always emitting a signal at all times. So these things right here, I have tested these very thoroughly by putting them next to the car and pressing the buttons. With these things, it blocks that signal and you can just store your keys in your house. And so if you have to park in your driveway, highly recommend them. They don't pay me. I'm just telling you what I know and why I got them. Now, when it comes to wallets, I am a fan of traditional bifold wallets. I don't like front pocket wallets for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I like to keep my front pockets as empty as possible. On one side, I usually have my cell phone. On the other side, I have my knife. And so for the past 5 years, I've been carrying these leather bifold wallets from a company called Popov Leather. They also make front pocket wallets as well. However, recently I had, I'm guessing someone had an RFID reader and got my credit card information out of here and tried to steal money. And unfortunately, they weren't able to get anything, but I still got the alert, called the bank, changed the card, stuff like that. And so I wanted to get an RFID blocking wallet, and I didn't see any over at the Popov Leather website. But back in January, when I was at SHOT Show, I went over to the 511 Tactical booth and I saw these wallets there. And these are a canvas wallet that they have, and they are the same thing. They are bifold, or basically the same setup as my Popov Leather wallets, except these have a window for my ID, whereas the Popov didn't. These have a RFID blocking technology inside of them. But what I was most impressed with this wallet is how much lighter weight it is than my leather wallet. My leather wallet, completely empty, weighs 2.8 ounces. This wallet, with all of my cards, my ID, cash, and other cards in there, only weighs 3.5 ounces. But I was just shocked at how light this was compared to this. And it makes a difference when you carry a wallet in your back pocket. This thing was so lightweight that I almost thought I didn't have my wallet on me, because I was so used to this guy kind of pulling down on my pants a little bit that I just forgot that I even had this on, which was a little bit of an adjustment. But I've been carrying this for the past 5 months, and it's been holding up great. But I will make sure to update you guys on how this is holding up as we do more EDC updates in the future. I also got a magnetic charger for my car, and I got wireless Android Auto with this thing called an M1A. I'll link it over to Parts List. It's basically, if you already have Android Auto in your car or Apple CarPlay, put this dongle, plug it into your USB, and it makes it all wireless. The last thing I want to talk about with phones, I've talked about this app in the past 2 or 3 EDC updates. It's an app called Upside. Essentially what you do is you install this app, you turn on your location or what have you. You go to whatever gas station that is participating in this app. Usually it's Shell gas stations, Circle K's, and I think they're adding more. There might be more now, but that's just, I use Shell gasoline on everything. There will be a map on here. I don't want to show you the map because then you'll know where I live, but there's a map on here. It'll tell you where gas is cheap, and you get like quite a bit money off for the gas. And this example is you share this app with your friends and your family, and the more people you share it with, you get more discounts, and then they share it with their friends, so on and so forth. And this thing works really well. I downloaded this app October of 2021 when I bought my TRX, and I'm gonna try to show you guys this. I might have to turn my brightness of my camera down. Let me see. So right there at the top says lifetime earnings, $9,366.94. Yeah, that's how much money has been put into my bank account from this app. Essentially the way it would work is like, let's just say gas is $5 a gallon. I'm just using a stupid number. And they say you can fill up for $4 a gallon. Well, you go to the tank, you check in on the app. You also put your card information in the app. That way they know you bought it. You pay the full price up front, the $5 a gallon. And then let's just say you get 30 gallons of fuel. They will take that $1 or $30 and deposit it right back into your account. This has been a lifesaver for me since having a TRX, and it gets like 11 or 12 miles per gallon. I will have a link for this over at the Parts List. Just download it and use it and share it with your friends. It legitimately works. They didn't sponsor me to say that. This is just something that I'm using on my own. So typically with these EDC updates, I will introduce a new knife that I'm going to be carrying, and then I'll update you on how much I like the knives that I've been testing for longer periods of time. For the past couple of years, these have been my main squeezes for knives. This one is the Fox Karambit from the Warrior Poet Society. I like Karambit style. It has the Emerson wave feature on here, so you can pull it out of your pocket and deploy it very fast. The thing I like about it is it's not using a standard Karambit blade. It's using a more of a curved Tonto style blade. Held up really, really well. The next knife that I've been enjoying for the past couple of years is this guy called the Kershaw. I forgot which one this one is. It's a launch Kershaw, but I'll have a link for it over at the Parts List. Automatic. So if you live in a state that doesn't allow automatics, that's just too sad. But it's a CPM 154 steel, and it's made in the United States. This is a very sexy design, and I absolutely love it. With that said, this is the SOG Terminus XR LTE, and it has, as you can see, a titanium nitrided blade on it and carbon fiber scales. This is a very lightweight knife. In my last EDC update, I was talking about how out of the box, this thing is pretty stiff. The main thing that was difficult about it at the beginning was pulling down the lock right here. It would get stuck kind of like that. I made it get stuck on purpose. But now that I've broken it in a lot, man, this thing is a beautiful flipper. And I've been finding myself between these 3 knives, carrying this one the most often. It's just so lightweight in your pocket. It doesn't have any weight to it hardly. It just basically disappears in your pocket. And this one is made of a CPM S35 VN steel. Really good steel. It's also very easy to sharpen. So these are the newer knives that I've been playing with for a little while now. Earlier, I was talking about 511 Tactical because I got in touch with them and they sent me a wallet. Well, they also sent me this knife here. This one is called, I forget which exact model number it is. I will notate that on the screen. Made of a D2 steel, and it is a flipper, flips open. Some things I like about it is you can do tip up or tip down on the pocket clip. It does have, I believe this is the Hinderer design. I could be wrong, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. It's made in China, unfortunately, but it's about a $25 knife. On the metal side, it does have has a stone washing, and on the opposite side, it has the G10 scales. I would highly suggest you put clip on this side because G10 will tear up your pockets from pulling it out a lot. I don't like this knife, and I don't recommend it for one big reason. This frame lock right here, you can see right here how thin that is. This thing is way too flimsy. I can barely touch it and get it right out of the way. And when it comes to frame locks or liner locks, man, they need to be in there pretty good for me to trust it. And so it's a cheap knife, thankfully, but I haven't really carried this, to be real with you. So then I got 2 new knives. This one is a $29 knife that I found called Civivi. I think that's how you say it. is Civivi Praxis. It's a China-made knife. This one does use a D2 steel, and it has the tip-up pocket clip, non-reversible. So if you're a lefty, you might not like this, but it works perfect for right-handed people. It does have a liner lock. The liner lock did kind of have me worried because of how thin it is, but it is very strong. It is under there. It's not something I'm gonna go jabbing into something hard with, but this is great for cutting boxes and stuff. I like D2 steel because it holds an edge really well. The downside of D2 steel is it can be a little bit cumbersome to sharpen. I like the color of it. It's a beautiful OD green. They have other colors, but this is a non-assisted opening knife. And look, I'm barely gonna flick it, watch. I mean, it shoots out really well. It's very well weighted. I paid $29 and some change for this, and I had same day delivery. That's crazy talk. So I'll have a link for this over at the parts list. A more expensive knife that I've been testing here for the past week or so is a Kershaw Iridium. This one is interesting. Now, unfortunately, this is not one of the Kershaws that's made in America. You know, for the past few years, the only Kershaws that I've had were all made in the United States. And unfortunately, this one wasn't. But this thing is dead sexy. Let me show you this guy. So back here, you get that orange spine right here. It's got this beautiful matte gray finish on it. And then you got your reversible tip-up pocket clips, and then you got a beautiful lock right up here. And it's easy to pull down, but not too easy. You can either pull it down and roll it out like that, or you can flick it out like that and just bring it back in like so. Oh man, I like this knife a lot. I do wish it was a flipper, but it's not. This one also uses a D2 high carbon steel, but look at this lock right here, man. This lock, it is solid. I've been playing with it, and this thing is buttery smooth right out of the box. And like I said, unfortunately, it's their China-made one. I hope they come out with a US version of this. And these are about $79 to $100, depending on where you get them. I will say, of the newer knives that I'm testing, this one's least favorite, this one's second favorite, but most impressive, especially for the $29. And then this one feels much more expensive than it actually is. Now, I'm not gonna go into detail on this because I've talked about it in other videos, but I'm still using the Work Sharp sharpeners. I do have the Ken Onion electric one, but the main one I find myself using is the Precision Adjust. I'm not gonna take it out because I've gone into this in other videos. I will link those videos up in the corner of the video here. Over there, I go into detail on how they work, but they give you a surefire way to get the perfect angle every single time, and that's important to me. So for flashlights, I'll be honest, I don't carry a flashlight on my person. Main reason being, I have a really good flashlight on my phone to do the task that I need to have done. So typically what I do is I carry flashlights in my vehicles, and these have saved me a handful of times. And I know everyone hates them, but I've been carrying Olights in my truck as well as in my car. And I also have them in my wife's car. The main reason that I like Olights for the car is I have had moments where I've gotten a flat tire at midnight on a moonless night, and I like that these can clip onto my hat and I can use them as a headlamp. Additionally, I like that they're magnetic because you can stick them up in a wheel well when you're changing a tire. You can stick them up under a hood of a car if you need to see what you're doing. I'll be honest with you, the only reason I even have these is because they sent me a grip of them over the years. I haven't gotten anything new in probably 2 or 3 years, just because I kind of just don't really work with Olight like that. However, I do need some advice from you guys, and I want you guys to let me know down in the comments. What other flashlight brand offers magnetic tail caps so you can stick them up in a hood, and also offers a hat clip, and also offers the high lumen output that these Olights have? The reason I ask those questions is I would love to have something that's like this or this, that has the reverse clip, the magnetic tail cap, the high lumen output, but is a square design, so it's not so bulky in the pocket. If these were flat like a knife, I would probably carry these in my pocket anyway. So now let's get into the guns, the holsters and the belt, and talk about the 2 huge deadly mistakes that I made with my EDC. So the first gun that I typically carry is a Shadow Systems War Poet Edition MR920. I've been carrying this since summer of 2021, and this gun has been so impressive that I actually picked up 2 more MR920s that I talked about in a previous video. I'm not gonna go into all the detail. If you wanna know more about the MR920s, I will have a link down in the description below for you to check that out. But this is all I'm gonna say about it. This gun right here is about a $1,200 gun, and you can't build one at the same spec and level of quality for any cheaper. And so that's what I love about this gun. It doesn't matter if it's the War Poet or the other MR920s, but the reason I say that is it comes with the red dot. It comes with beautiful suppressor height sights that have a beautiful greenish yellow front sight, blacked out rear, comes with a good trigger. For the light on this one, I'm using the Enforce Wild One. I've always been a big fan of the Enforce lights. I know some people in the past on the older versions like the APL-C and the APL, people had some problems with them. Personally, for me, I just never had a problem with them. I don't know why, but I love the way that the paddles are actuated. You just hold for momentary, quick flick for constant on. But these aren't the only lights that I like. I also like the Streamlight TLR 7As that I have here on my M&P metal. For the holster, I am using the Tier 1 Concealed Axis Elite. This is the newest holster to the collection for appendix rigs. I always prefer appendix rigs because I like the 2-clip design and I like how it distributes the weight across the front of my body. Because typically if I had just this side and no mag carrier, I'll have a bump on one side of my belt line and it'll look just kind of funny. So I like this. This is actually way more comfortable for me than it is to just carry without the mag caddy. A couple things I like about the Tier 1 Concealed holsters is you can get them with an open end. The open end allows not only a Glock 19, but it allows for a threaded barrel. It also allows, if you wanted to put a Glock 17 in here, the Glock 17 will fit perfectly. We're gonna go over this gun more in a minute, but this gun has the Radian Ramjet comp on it. And so if you're running a comp, it'll also give you clearance for the comp. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, your comp gets hot when you're shooting a lot and you don't wanna singe your biscuits. You get that on there and it'll totally keep everything protected for you. The other thing I like about this holster is what they call the concealment claw. I don't know if Tier 1 calls it that, but a lot of people do. But they changed the design and made stackable pancakes on here with layers, and you can adjust how much that pushes against your belt line. And essentially what that does is, because it pushes against your belt line, it pushes the grip of the gun further into your body, aiding in more concealability. On the back side of here, you're gonna notice this wedge. I've kind of cut it up a little bit, but they have these wedges that stick onto the back. You buy them extra, they don't come with the holster. And what that does is it acts like a fupa. So on your pubic bone, the holster won't dig into it, but additionally, what it'll do is it'll push the bottom of the gun out and push the top of the gun back into your body even more so. You'll see what I'm talking about when I show you what they look like on my person. Now, the type of holster that I typically like to use is another one from Tier 1 Concealed called the MSP holster. This is from the Modern Samurai project. What's great about this holster, you can get it as just a holster or you can get it with the mag caddy. The other cool part is this holster fits any gun that has a Surefire X300 on it. And I'm not even kidding. I have gone through the gambit of 2011s, I've gone through the gambit of Glocks, M&Ps, P320s, everything that I have in my safe that an X300 will fit on, will fit in this holster. And so this is the holster that I like to use when I don't want to order a new holster and I want to see how a gun feels to carry and practice with at the range. You can also see on the back of this holster, I have a wedge on it. The only downside about this holster is it's a little bit thicker than a form-fitted holster. And so it does protrude out just a little bit, but otherwise, I love this holster to death. The second mistake that I made, and this is totally on me, this is nobody else's fault. So with Tier 1 holsters, typically when it comes to your clips and your retention, they don't Loctite them from the factory for a very specific reason. They want you to be able to adjust your retention for you and how you like to draw and carry, and they want you to be able to adjust your clips, but you're supposed to Loctite them after you do so, and I didn't. One day, my wife and I were out on a date night and we had to go to Home Depot for some reason, and as I was about to get out of the car, I don't remember which clip it was, one of these clips, both screws completely backed out and fell down my pants in the car. And it was nighttime and I was shaking my pant leg trying to get the screws out. Thankfully, I found all the screws and then I went into Home Depot where we're going anyway. And I don't typically carry a multi-tool on my person. So I just picked up another multi-tool that had a Phillips head and I fixed this in the car. Long story short, make sure after you get your holsters adjusted, regardless if it's from Tier 1 or any other company, make sure that you Loctite them after you get your retention and your belt clips set where you want them. Now, if you're a person that already concealed carries, you already know that if you don't have a good belt to hold your holster, you're not gonna have a good time, because if it sags and falls around and all that kind of stuff, it's just gonna droop your pants off. But at the same time, you also know if your belt is too stiff, that it can actually pinch some nerves in your back or in your hip and maybe cause a little bit of numbness down your leg, or it could even flare up low back problems. And so over the years, I've played with a few different types of belts. In the past 2 years, my favorite has been the Next Belt Supreme Appendix. These come in a couple of different colors. I believe they got black, which I have here. They have FDE, and I think they have a camo color. Now these are very similar to the Core Essential belts, but what I like about these a little bit more than Core Essentials is I like the subtle design of the buckle. I felt like Core Essentials did a little too much design work in their buckles. And back in the day, when this first came out, Core Essentials buckles were too wide. And because their buckles were so wide, I didn't have any adjustment right here on where my gun would sit on my belt. I would have to turn it to the side, which is not a problem, but again, their buckles were wide and they kind of stuck out on my hip bone. Now, currently, Core Essentials does make smaller buckles similar to this, but this has been my all-time favorite. They're like 60 bucks or something like that. And this, I have been just touting my love for this belt for a very long time. However, recently, a new belt has came out that I've been testing for the past 5 or so months, and I like it a little better, but for different types of scenarios. And that's gonna be this fella right here from Tier 1 Concealed called the EDC S belt. And this kind of solves a couple of different problems. So earlier I was talking about if belts are too loose, they sag and the gun doesn't really stay pressed against your body. But then I talked about how if it's too stiff, it will pinch your nerves and cause numbness. This one solves both of those problems. The front of it here has the hard material to hold the weight of your belt, and the back of it here is stretchy. And it has adjustable sizing on the front of it. Not only can you adjust the sizing in the clip that's on the belt itself, but there's 3 slots for you to clip this into. This is a buckle to the side, but the cool thing is it doesn't stick out on your hip bone and you don't feel it. This is hands down the most comfortable belt that I've ever worn in my life. But the best part is it doesn't sag when I'm carrying with my gun. Let me show you what I mean. I have my extra mag kind of disassembled from what I was showing you earlier, so I just threw in another mag. But I am carrying full weight. These mags are loaded, so about 36-ish rounds. So in this setup, this is actually a 17 rounder with a +5, 22 rounds, 15 + 1. You can actually see that it's holding my pants up very well. The only reason that this is canted down on my belt line is because that's how I wear my pants. And then as you put it on, it completely disappears in just a t-shirt. And the best part is, because the back of it is stretchy, you can sit down with a lot more comfort than you typically could with belts that don't have any give to them. Now, these belts do have a pretty good sized con to them. They're not cheap, unfortunately. You know, every belt that I've ever really tested in the past has been less than $100. They are $115. But if you're the kind of person like me that really never has to tuck their shirt in, this is perfect because you don't have the bulk of any types of buckles. You have the rigidity of a good gun belt, but you also have the flexibility of a non-gun belt, and it just makes life more comfortable. And this is the other way that I wanted to lighten my load. This belt weighs almost 10 ounces on my scale, and this one weighs a little over 5 ounces. And although there's only a 5-ounce difference, you really feel it, not only in the hand, but when you're wearing it. So if that's worth the price to you, then by all means, I'll have links at the parts list for you. But if not, no worries as well. Now, with that being said, if you want to go into even more depth on how to make a holster and your everyday carry firearm, magazines, all that stuff disappear even better on your body, I highly suggest you go check out this video right here because I go into a lot of detail on how to actually adjust the clips, the retention, and the concealment wings so that you can make these completely disappear. You can also drive in the car with them and be very comfortable at the same time. But I hope this video helped you guys out. But until next time, guys, I love you and you guys stay sexy.